Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Beyond Identity's webinar, Breach Fatalism is Over, How Identity Threat Prevention, ITP, Brings Back Control. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm Lital Ashadotan. I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Beyond Identity, and I'm so happy, Kurt, that you joined me today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Excited to talk about this topic as well. And hello, everybody. I'm Kurt Johnson, Chief Strategy Officer here at Beyond Identity. And I love the title we put together because I think it really sums it up perfectly. Fatalism is this attitude of resignation in the fate of some future events and just the acceptance that you're powerless to do anything about it. And I think that applies so perfectly to authentication and credential compromise. We just assume the attacker is going to get in. And so we've been shifting all of our focus and our budget and our spend on a slew of tools to kind of help us find it as quickly as possible and respond to it. We've just resigned to the fact that they're going to get in. And you think about the whole concept of zero trust. It starts with presume compromise.
It's so fatalistic. If you remember, there was like a write-up, I think about 10 years ago from Microsoft saying, assume a breach. And I think all CISOs came to the boards and started saying, we are in a post-breach reality. We just need to get insured. And everybody got the cyber insurance, and we all need, faster time to detect, faster time to respond. That's how we're going to get it. We put the SOC on a bunch of alerts. We triage them. We need to move fast and do it. And we are all now in this reality of breach has become, because we believe it is inevitable. It became inevitable. And everybody is, at the end of the day, being breached this way or another. Now, it might be. I mean, a very dedicated state sponsor attacker might, at the end of the day, find a way in. But the reality is that 90% of the attackers are not state sponsored, very sophisticated attackers. Most of them are criminals using off the shelf tools that they can find in the internet for, $100 and download and use, not needing too much technical capabilities. And they're just spraying and praying. And we
That's
fall
it.
prey, right?
It's a paint by numbers approach now for a credential compromise. Just here's your kit, place paint in the numbers, and guess what? You have a phishing kit and you have a breach.
Yeah. And we just accepted this reality, and we are here to say, let's change it. So let's start with the reality. And this is exactly the reality we're stepping into. No matter how you look at reports from the industry, you read it in the CrowdStrike report, you read it in Mandiant, in the Verizon data breach report. No matter what the outcome of the hackers is, if it's data theft or if it's ransomware or whatever they're trying to achieve or all together, it's always identity compromise the way they're getting in, right? It's like phishing or, IT help desk impersonation or whatever. It's all around credentials, stealing credential, moving laterally. It's still so common. And, I've been thinking about it a lot. The fact that we have a huge industry for training employees to respond to phishing attacks, which is great and important, and security awareness is super important. We'll never say, don't train your employees to identify phishing. But seriously, in the age of AI tools, you cannot recognize a phishing email anymore, as a human being, recognizing from a legit email from your boss. That's the reality. The tools are so good that we human beings should not be the ones to be put to say this is legit and I can click this link and this is not legit and it's not coming from my HR department. So we're just using the wrong approaches to fight a very serious problem that human beings cannot fight against.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to your point, so even prior to the increased quality of some of these phishing emails and attacks, best in class was around 4% of non-clicks. Well, that's still 4%. I mean, play the math out. Like out of 100, four are going to click. So
It only
now
gets one to that will
and
click.
that's all it takes. And now with the CrowdStrike breach report identified this, that the AI generated ones are seeing a 4 times successful click-through rate.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's just going to get better. They also identified that the voice phishing increased over 400% from the first half to second half of last year. AI is absolutely making it easier for them to create quality emails and voice attacks, and it's just going to get worse. And on top of that, yes, it's true. The AI is helping them and create better quality. But what AI has also done in a way is create this democratization of breach and fraud. It's creating an environment that breaks down barriers and is sharing more and more information than ever before. So when someone has success, that's shared amongst the adversary community. So I believe, with better phishing tools, better AI created quality, we're continuously chasing this. And this has been the false hope of MFA for a long time. And that, okay, yeah, passwords were easy to breach. Let's make MFA. In a sense, today, it's like, okay, we're not just putting locks on the front door anymore. We're vaulting the access, but we're making the code to get into the vault easily available and easy for the adversaries to get.
Absolutely. And basically you're just saying it. It's a perfect storm of why we're here. If you think about it, very easy nowadays to bypass MFA. As we say, so many tools, proliferation of AI is out there. At the same time, think about our organization, how they evolved. For sure, this accelerated since the pandemic, and it's only going to grow more and more. Proliferation of unmanaged device. We're focused on the users, but the device matters as well. And the reality is we have to let in unmanaged device or those that are coming from hybrid workforces, contractors. We cannot place an EDR tool or an MDM tool on every device that is accessing our network. That's the reality in most organizations. You might be, a federal agency and you can enforce it, but the reality of businesses that have to have agility is that they will have, contractors, unmanaged employees, and all kinds of people just accessing files, accessing the CRM, accessing Git repositories, and whatever. So the reality is that there is lack of control over device, and it's only increasing. It's not going back. And, also the diversity of SaaS tools, the diversity of OSs. So you can, have maybe very good EDR protection to Windows and Mac. Linux is not as good, and it's touching your most, important employees and your code repository. Are you really sure about the controls you have over Linux machine? Not to even talk about Chrome OS, which is the wild, wild west, and we have a lot of customers that come to us because of that. That's an interesting area. And we already talked about the perfect storm of AI coming on top of all of that. Well, guess what? People with AI tools will figure out immediately what type of device you have in your organization and how to exploit them. That's easy. I mean, we are doing the scanning on as security people. Well, guess what? The hackers have so many easy to scan tools to find the device that is vulnerable in your whole fleet. Yeah, any thoughts about this kind of changing world of where we are?
Yeah, we often like to say, oh, Kurt's on the internet, Kurt's in Salesforce, but it is the device that Kurt is on that's
Yeah.
actually in Salesforce or Workday or whatever it might be. And we've always addressed identity as, is it Latal? Is it Kurt? But what's this device that they're on too? And so it's devices can be protected. We just don't always apply those controls. And there's always loopholes. I was talking to the CISO of a large government agency, and they were like, "Yeah, we're all, PIV cards. We're all, preventing everything access. They need to do all of these different controls." And then they said, "But when our senior folks need to get into a limo to head up to the hill for a meeting, they grab their iPad and they need access to make sure that they have their last notes or if any changes." And I'm like, well, you can't stick a, PIV card or a CAT card into a iPad. What are they doing? Well, we had to open up access for them. Well,
Right.
there's the answer right there. You opened up access to them and everything else. So, in this environment that we really continue to focus on not impacting the business, all of these different types of things are exactly why we've made it simpler and easier for adversaries to gain access.
How do you know that a developer is not using his gaming machine that is jailbroken to install all those kind of free games and is full of remote access tools that were, installed, by the way, on it? It's kind of the Wild West, really. And it's time to kind of shift to something that can actually work. So we have a bunch of security and identity tools. I wanted to bring it to, I think, the three core issues that brings it to why the traditional security tools fall short. And a lot of them are moving in the right direction, but I think we're still not there. And I think one of the most important things, and we're in year 2025, but passwords are still here, OTPs are still here, stealable factors are still here. And as long as we have them, as long as there's going to be session hijacking, man in the middle, somebody can steal something and authenticate using it, we're kind of doomed. We can put a lot of different layers, but if we start thinking about prevention of the problem from the root cause is that no matter what we do, we shift from, a second factor that is in your email to just a push button to whatever, it's still a factor that is movable. It's fishable. And if that's the case, we're not going to solve the problem. So I think this is like, and we at Beyond Identity, this is the core. We believe that the factors for authentication has to be device bound, bound to the hardware, cannot be moved, cannot be shifted. That's the only way to just not go into, okay, we'll detect it when it happens. I don't know, Kurt, if you have thoughts about this one. I put it as first because I think this is at the core.
It is. It's absolutely at the core. Even with the rise in use of passkeys, people feel that this is absolutely leaps and bounds ahead of where we had been. But then dealing with user needs to have multiple devices are opening up the conversations around shareable passkeys. Well, right
Mm.
there is the word
The word
shareable amongst
shareable is
devices.
where the whole concept
Yeah,
was
it's like,
put
okay,
down.
it goes from here to there. When it's from here to there, it means there's an ability
If
to
it's
steal that.
shareable with your fellow, it's shareable with the hacker. Period.
Yep. And if we're going to share them and protect them in vaults, guess what? We're exposing all those shareable passkeys in a way that needs to be protected and could be compromised as well. So it's a critical point. A key needs to be on a device, bound to the device, never moved from the device, not accessible by anybody to truly ensure that it can't be stolen.
Absolutely. That's a key. Now, I think that the second one, and we talked about it at the beginning, I think this kind of shift that we had about a decade ago that's kind of only grew bigger about investing majorly in detection and response. cutting short the detection time, cutting short the response time, being happy about us being able to do it, only made us focus on the kind of like later problem instead of going to the root cause. And our belief that it's inevitable actually made us not invest enough in the root cause and play to the hands of the hackers that kind of like, okay, we can always find ways to not get detected by a CrowdStrike. I think this is why we as an industry, I'm not saying I used to work in many detection and response companies. Don't you have to have detection and response because yes, at the end of the day, your protection, your prevention tools might fail. Everything we in security, we always need to verify, but still, you need to start first by prevention and get the detection and response to be the thing that comes after.
Yeah, and
Good.
it's
What's
if
your
you
thought?
watch, yeah, if
Yeah.
you watch the growth of various, detection and response industries, all of a sudden this rise of portable devices and mobile devices meant EDR had to become a real thing. Like these devices that, the ones that we used to could protect behind the walls of our network and in the building are now everywhere and being accessed by everything. So yeah, let's put the controls in place for MDM, for EDR that grew to XDR. Look at ITDR, identity threat detection and response. Because we've made these identity systems ensure the availability of access from anybody, anywhere, now those threats need to be detected and responded to as well. So everything we've done in an industry to make it more accessible, more easy, more efficient for users to gain access to the critical resources they need to do their job. The adversaries have quickly jumped on top of that, and industries have sprouted and grown and continue to grow. I know, don't mean to disparage any of my friends in the ITDR industry who are seeing explosive growth, but shame on us for creating identity systems that could be so simple for adversaries to gain access to that we needed to kind of put those controls in place because again, that mindset, that fatalism that, well, we're not going to prevent it. So let's put even more focus on finding it and finding it quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is a huge place for ITDR as a category to identify, misconfigurations, to identify
Correct.
issues. Absolutely. I mean, all those IDPs, SSOs are very complex installation, and you have to have tools that will help you, should be integrated into the tools, but should consult you and identify risky configurations, should help you identify, people that are still configured but left the organization and kind of like a lot of those things that you need to have partially for compliance, partially for security and risk. But I do think that moving to rely on those things as approach to kind of like deal with breaches is not the right approach. The right approach is to harden your identity tools so they will not be so easily breachable. So basically, treat the vulnerabilities from the beginning. Don't just, go and manually fix the misconfigurations. Yes, you need to do them, but that will not stop the breach. And I think the last one is the most interesting one, especially for our enterprise folks here listening to us. So we're in identity. And I think identity is extremely crucial in terms of organization productivity and performance because basically identity is the highway to wake up in the morning and actually do your damn job. If you cannot access and you're being blocked, if the CEO is in the middle of a board presentation and for some reason he cannot access his slides, well, this is first a job restriction decision by whomever blocked him. But at the same time, it's just bad for the business. So the fact is that identity became or maybe was from the start up. It's an IT productivity tool. And there is a fear of using it as a security and risk management tool because the fear of blocking users from doing their jobs. And I think it's a real fear. Nobody wants to, deny access or block people from doing the job. And it's the most important thing that we in the identity space are mindful about. I think that for a long time, people moved to this detection and response because they didn't want to move to prevention because prevention means blocking of some people, and nobody likes that. Um, I think there is a way to go that should not be a compromise between user experience, the highway to productivity, and compliance and security. There must be a precise way to only block real risk, real times when things are out of compliance, maybe not block, maybe offer an alternative. But we need this kind of, brain that will make real-time precise decision per use case, per location, per solution that is being touched at the moment, the application the user is doing, kind of like have awareness of context to be able to make precise access decisions and prevent access when actually there is a risk. I don't know what you think about it, but I think this is a big reason for a lot of people to have a knee jerk when you start going into security and identity, and people are, no, 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 I'm not sure I want to go that direction.
The challenge of, managing a security organization is significant, not only trying to keep up with the threats and the potential and the various adversaries out there and where is our data and how do we protect it, but that fear that you mentioned runs so deep and has through years of kind of managing this that yeah, at the ultimate, the fear of blocking a user that needs to get to something critical is, that's, career shortening, but like even the fear of creating friction, so, well, we want this step up authentication and this one, and every deployment has to go through that balancing act. Like, what's the level of annoyance and friction that we need in order to protect? And okay, we went too far on this scale, so we have to bring it back. And this is even on more tools on devices. Well, slow the devices. What can we get away with? And so every decision has to always assess, well, what's the risk of this? What's the likelihood? What's the impact? And where do we apply those controls? What if we could figure out a way of making an experience easier for an end user that at the same time can truly prevent identity threat?
And I think many of that is linked to actually removing passwords, removing the stealable factors, because funny enough, many of those annoying MFA, OTPs, whatever, are the ones that slow us down. When you need to get your second device to kind of click on it, those are all productivity disruptors, in my opinion. So actually, the beauty of today's technology and the ability to go into, non-movable factors, device-bound factors, is that you can get precision, you can get better user experience, you can get people authenticating the same way they're doing with the Google or Apple Pay, with biometrics on the same device, no second device, to any work application. So make them happy, but also have you, the security IT leader, have better control of the device and the user and the condition they're coming from, the context. So I think technology has evolved to a place that we can actually achieve the first point and the last point at the same time, which is always kind of a great thing. So with that, we wanted to say the new approach of identity threat prevention is here. You can stop threats, you can stop most of identity and device-based threats before they even get to you. And that's kind of like a concept. And today we're going to give you kind of a bite into what we mean. There is an ebook coming up that will give the entire kind of story of what is ITP, how we at Beyond Identity see it, and how we hope the entire industry will catch up and think about it, because we think it's not just a technology, it's kind of an approach for identity security. So let's dive into it. So, first and foremost, I want to say we don't think that identity threat prevention replaces the IDPs you have, the infrastructure you have in place. You invested a lot of funds, time, resources in building your identity platforms to a place that serve your organization. You have one of those vendors in place or many others that exist out there, and they're good. They're providing you day-to-day access to your applications, and they're letting people in. The only problem is, and we've seen it again and again in the past 24 months, each one of the identity vendors were breached on their own, and the customers were breached because of vulnerable parts in the way the identity stack is built. And people realize that. And we are here to say you can keep your SSO, your IDP, your layers of your IGA, whatever you're using there for the different identity access needs you have, but you need to think about how you harden them with those things we talked about. And we'll get back to that. Kurt, you've been working with so many of those companies. You've been with some of them. You were collaborating. We are collaborating with many of them. How do you think about, companies have a mix of IDPs. They already invested a ton. What is it that we need to do to just make it a little bit more bulletproof, if bulletproof exists?
Yeah, I mean, these systems were designed to truly enable exponential increases in efficiency for users gaining access. It's created speed in our ability to make decisions. It's created speed and efficiency in the productivity of companies across financial services, healthcare. I mean, the caregivers having access available for a patient information as opposed to digging through charts in the past. Like all of that access is what these systems were designed to enable. And it's just inevitable that as a result of that, the adversaries are going to take those same highways to try to gain access. So, in a way that you wouldn't deploy a network without putting in a firewall, we believe you don't put in an identity system without this layer of identity threat prevention. So, it really is designed from the ground up to provide true tight integration into the existing systems without reconfiguration, without change, but adding this layer of protection on top of it.
Absolutely. And the second thing that people have in place and you need to use in order to have a real prevention layer is all the investment organization, like the ones on our call listening to us, invested in sensors, in detection and response tools, in those that identify malicious behavior, risky behavior. As we said, you already put a ton into EDRs, zero trust networks tools, NDRs, your VPN infrastructure, you have a SIM, you have a SOAR. You get so much context about potential risk and malicious behaviors in your organization. The thing is that most of your identity tools are not necessarily aware, and for sure not aware in real time when something malicious is being detected by your CrowdStrike. How can you start linking now a malware appearing on a device and being recognized by CrowdStrike to immediately not just containing the device, but cutting access? Can you do that? Can you do it in real time, in an automated way, not when the next time that device will authenticate? Well, why? What happens if it happens throughout the session? That might be risky. So many things that will mean that your device is now out of compliance and still connected to your network. What about if your policy says every employee has to have the VPN on? I know so many organizations that are kind of want to enforce VPN always on. Can they? What happens when the VPN goes off? Will you really be able to cut the session off? It's your decision, and you need to be able to do that. So we need kind of a connection layer between your authentication layer and between your security stack that will help make continuous real-time decision about the health of a device, the risk it imposes, and the fact that it might be out of compliance. Kurt, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this has been a fundamental, belief from Beyond Identity from day one. Just as we were just talking about the importance of layering on your existing identity stack without making changes to it, we felt that went broader. I mentioned earlier, it's not just who is gaining access and is it Kurt or is it Latal, but what? What's that device that that person's on? And are those two absolutely tied together? So we know the user, we know the device the user is using is the one that registered that private key that's bound to that device in the first place. But a true assessment of the security controls around it when you need it most, which is at the time of authentication when somebody's first entering, is what the whole policy engine and the connections and integrations into these valuable tools provides to ensure that the mobile device management MDM tools are effectively not just on the device, but configured correctly and identifying specific areas that you want to make sure are in place before allowing access to the user. For the EDR tools to pull access to hundreds of pieces of information around risk and vulnerability of device to make policy-based access decisions on. Prevent a device that doesn't have these controls or has some form of risk or vulnerability and block that access at that point and then continuously. Because we all know too often we viewed authentication kind of like a bouncer at the nightclub that opens up the rope and lets you in and then kind of doesn't worry about it after the fact. Our approach is authentication needs to be a continuous process. We need to continuously assess that these controls haven't changed. And if they have, disconnect that session. Go back to the IDP, work with the zero trust network access providers like a Zscaler or Palo Alto to disable that access and require re-authentication of a user, which is not going to be granted unless whatever policy or controls that came out of policy are corrected. So this is the philosophy, and doing so in a way that takes the user out of this experience, like not relying on them to have to do it, is critical because all the authentication, all the checks are happening through the Beyond Identity system for authentication to mechanize, to automate that whole process. And after that, that continuous is invisible to the end user. This is all running on kind of behind the scenes, not requiring users to re-authenticate every hour or trying to turn session timers down. It really is a continuous process based on, the needs of the organization that are doing so in a way that doesn't disrupt the user, but provides that confidence, provides that assurance that the controls we want to be in place are truly in place and in a way that prevents the adversary in the middle, the adversary in the browser, the stealing of credentials by just not allowing them to work outside of this system.
Absolutely. And I think if you think about it from a monetary investment that organization have put, what's better for you as a CISO also that already put all those investment into the security tool to used to extend the influence, the ability of those tools to impact your security by pulling the capabilities into access decisions. Again, EDRs are wonderful tools for detection of bad behavior. The thing is that you're not stopping it fast enough and being able to respond to it. If it only goes to your SOC to go and triage the alert, it's not too good. You want the automated way to actually do something to immediately block the users from accessing critical applications. So it's a wonderful way to actually extend the investment you have already in the bunch of security tools that all of us have in place.
In a sense, what we've done is enable these controls to become preventative controls as well. No,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, kind of to summarize what we believe are the core kind of philosophies of ITP, of threat prevention. And we already discussed them at length, and I kind of like want to bring it up together. First and foremost, it all starts by removing phishable authentication. If there is one thing we want everybody to take and to start thinking of is what can you do today to start eliminating phishable authentication? No, ITP is not phish resistant, even though some people think it is. The first and foremost thing you need to be thinking of is, of course, get rid of passwords, get your MFA to be phish resistant, and, really move into device-bound credentials. If you can do just that today, you're in such a better place from a prevention standpoint that we can even just stop there. The other things are extremely important, but let's just point at that one. This is critical, right, Kurt? You would agree.
oh, absolutely. As I said before, when it can't move, it can't be stolen. It starts right there as an absolute critical component to true identity threat prevention.
Absolutely. And this is linked, of course, if you're going into device bound, that means device health is being checked. And that's the second one. We said it's not just the user that is authenticating, it's the device that is authenticating. Device health is critical. And the reality is that no, your MDM is not enough because your MDM is not on all the device. Most organizations let non-MDM, non-EDR device get in. And even when they have MDM and EDR, they're not necessarily checking the third point, continuously verifying the situation, the health of the device to verify access. And that's the third thing. Too often we see people think about phishable authentication, removable of that. People do think about device trust, device health, but they think about it as a one time at the point of authentication when guess what? Sessions keep on going forever. Seriously, how many times we've seen that, it's just not good enough. It has to be continuous. It's just a no-brainer that it needs to be all the time, right?
You got it. It's no longer a one and done event. It has to be on this continuous basis, really ensuring that, again, all the controls are always in place when somebody's in our systems.
Yep. And I would say, I think at the end of the day, there is no one size fits all. And that's why I think you as a customer need to have the ability to set policies that are right for you and find a way that is easy to configure based on your risk tolerance, your need, your compliance, and have a system that, as we said, is well informed by all the tools you already have in your organization. So that's another level, the ability to enforce precise, context-based. When we talk about context, we talk about data from all your security sensors, and really be able to have a taste to when you want to block, when you want to let people in, when you just want to get report of something happening.
Yeah, and we are again another core philosophy for ours has been easy to use for end users, simple to administer as well. And so the effort we've put into and the work we put into our policy engine is to extract these controls, but make it very easy to configure for an organization to identify which ones they want to put in place in policy. We've also do a what if analysis prior to implementing it. So you can test a policy saying, okay, what if I don't allow access to anybody who doesn't have disk encryption enabled? And you scan your environment and find, guess what? 80% of our users don't have disk encryption enabled. We don't want to block access to all of them yet. Let's make sure we fix that and then enforce that. So, we really kind of borrow on two different kind of systems in use out there. One's I think you mentioned it earlier, Lital, around like Apple Pay or Google Pay, that the user verifies it's them and they have a secure transaction to pay, automated transaction. We believe the same thing for authentication. But the other one is airport security, that you have to show a government official ID to know it's truly you. You still have to go through the, detection systems, as does your bag that's with you, to truly verify that. And, the controls are in place. Like, if you bring a water bottle to the airport, you're going to get caught, So it's like, if we have the ability to protect all these devices, let's protect them. And yeah, you can allow personal devices, but they have to meet these level of controls if we're going to allow them. Third parties who are coming in, whether they be like a marketing agency helping you out or a developer coming in, may have very strong controls, but you as an organization are not the ones responsible for managing those devices. Give me visibility into them and let me make policy-based access decisions.
Absolutely. And I think last but not least, we talk a lot about AI and the risk of AI. I think we're seeing now this rise in a ton of companies developing AI detection, AI neutralization tools. We think AI can be fought with identity, and I'll explain. If you just develop AI detection tools using AI to detect AI impersonation, AI deepfakes, all kinds of those things, trying to fight AI with AI, you're building a probabilistic tool to identify another probabilistic tool. The chances is that your AI detection will be outsmart by the AI tool that will just learn it. We're into an infinite arms race here between AI and fighting AI. The way to break the cycle, we believe, is moving from probabilistic to deterministic. The fact that we believe you need to move to authentication that is device bound, that is hardware reliant, makes it deterministic and not probabilistic. You basically have the device credentials, which are bound to the device itself, to its core, the way it was manufactured, and very hard to steal. Not saying it can never be done, but it's one of those things we all rely on in a digital world. We need to rely more on those kind of things when we are trying to deal with deep fakes, impersonation, and all those kind of things that we ask ourselves, is it a real identity that we should allow, or is it a fake AI bot trying to access our solutions? And it's true for the growing world of agentic AI and all kinds of things. We need to start thinking about this in a way that will look at device bound, will look at deterministic criteria for access, and not just trying to detect you based on all kinds of fuzzy things that will be maneuvered by AI.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts,
absolutely.
Kurt? I'm sure you see tons of those slew of technologies coming in the
We
AI
do, and
arena.
yeah, and again, it kind of follows our typical path. The adversary starts using them. We have to figure out a way to stop them. And the deepfake detection is, a way of doing that. And as you said, I mean, it's an arms race there. And we kind of flip in the script to say, well, instead of deepfake detection, let's just do real person verification. And so, maybe I had a horrendous accident, got kicked in the face by a horse or something, and I don't want to show that on a Zoom call. I might use AI, or there's incredible advancements in AI for people with disabilities to have their voice better through video conferencing and appearance. So some of those tools might be real valuable, but at least it's not, okay, I detected something here. What I have shown is it's really Kurt. And Kurt's on a device that we expect him that he's bound to, and that device meets our security controls. Like that assurance will give me the confidence to know if I'm going to wire money to you, that it's really you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a solution called Reality Check. Check it out if you're interested in deepfake prevention. That's part of the whole identity threat prevention. And this is the way we believe you can kind of deal with this new brave world of deepfakes and impersonation. Um, with that, we talk a lot with customers who use Beyond Identity, with customers who try us. We compare the level of phishing before and after. We talk with CISOs. I talked with the CISO that told me, you know what I like about Beyond Identity and your prevention mindset? It's the assurance that I have, the guarantee that if a device accessed my code, it is a device that is fully compliant and follows all. I know who it is. I know it's an okay. There is no way somebody will access my code repository if it is not fully compliant and a device that I know of. The fact that I guarantee access is letting me sleep well at night. So we have seen at the end of the day, because identity, phishing, credentials, all those kind of ways are the main causes of a breach. We've seen that ITP, if you implement it, if you start with all those stepping stone to get it in, from moving to unphishable factors, to device trust, to putting the right policies in place, to informing your decision based on security tools you have in place, you can get up to 80% of elimination of the root causes of breaches. Of course, it means your SOC needs to deal with less alerts. Of course, you can sleep better at night. At the end of the day, we've seen ones telling us, this helped me decrease my cyber insurance because phish-resistant MFA is so much stronger. And, now I can submit that as an assurance for my cyber insurance to take my premium down. Um, this is where we're in. We want to get real results that are meaningful. At the end of the day, nothing is bulletproof, but you can eliminate a big, big chunk of your attack surface. And this is where we want people to be today. The technology is there. We're ready to implement it. Kurt, what are the kind of like most ahas you've heard from customers and from partners working with us?
Yeah, I think, the prevention kind of speaks to itself, but the aspect of assurance and of a deterministic control around an authentication sequence that I was working with one customer that when one of the identity system breaches occurred, we really wanted to see the impact to them. And they essentially looked at every authentication request, every access token that occurred, and knew that the Beyond Identity ones were safe. So if they were looking for a needle in a haystack, we just immediately allowed them to look for a needle in a handful of hay. So the efficiency it can be on your response teams is significant. But having all this rich data, working with digital certificates, we get assigned a mutable audit record of every identity and device and state of the device and the resource being accessed. If you're seeing things and getting prompts for risky identity threats, but can then push to have them authenticate through Beyond Identity and verify it really is them, that's feedback that comes back that maybe that's not an alert next time. Maybe, because it was a different location just by itself doesn't mean anything if we have this truly deterministic understanding of who that user is and what the device was. So it can really help how ripple effect kind of make forensics easier and more efficient to really help identify where threats are and even use the action that maybe an adversary is trying to attempt to get something in. Send them a beyond identity request. They're probably not going to want an authenticator on their device that is going to validate the device and who that user is. So when you start to see the maneuver tactics or the tactics to maneuver around it, you've basically kind of really shown a light on it. So it's a real powerful force to really kind of use across the entire life cycle and of your defense in depth.
Yeah, it reminds me of the last year's talk at Black Hat when we brought some information post the Snowflake breach that we kind of reviewed how they used beyond identity for the forensics, actually knowing which authentication went through and not needing to really have a huge haystack and just looking on real authentication and being able to access that data was significant for them to be able to realize that critical systems were not breached, to kind of get to triage really quick and understanding what's the scope. And that's a big, big thing about what happens when there is a breach or there is a potential breach. And the data
Absolutely.
that is deterministic and not probabilistic is actually giving you answers when you're doing that. So that's another interesting aspect that we all appreciate. Um, with that, I think we kind of like gave you an introduction to this new concept that we really believe is gonna move security and identity in the right direction. We have tons of detection and response. We need to do more prevention. I want to point that an ebook is coming really shortly. If you see this live, we're probably going to send it over to you in your mailbox a few days after. And if you see it later on, please download the ebook, share it with people that you think it may help. Feel free to share this recording if you think this could open people's hearts and minds to this new approach that we really believe and we want to evangelize. We would love to talk to you. Come to beyondidentity.com, our website. Click the talk to us, request a demo. You can schedule time. We're not going to be pushy. We can show you what we do and see if it's good for you. You can come, have a POV with us, and see how we can help you augment your identity solutions and harder them for better prevention. Kurt, any last words before we wrap it up here?
I think we've covered it. So it was really a pleasure talking with you today, Latal, about this important topic. And as I said, yeah, check us out, look us up on LinkedIn. Love to hear what you think, and look forward to continuing this journey together.
Excellent. Well, come next time to our next webinar. Looking forward to seeing all of you and have a great day. Thank you. Thanks,
Bye
Kurt.
all.
Bye bye.